I have the thing where I fear that I will be late to a thing, and so then I'm like embarrassingly early to the
Yeah,
thing.
I
Me
don't
So
think
thank you for
too.
having
I don't think this is embarrassingly early. I think this is perfectly early.
Yeah.
respectably early. Okay, I'll take it.
Hi, I'm Maddie.
And I'm Abigail, and this is
Two writers.
Many Wrongs. Today we have Meredith Lavender and Kendall Shores. They are authors of a new thriller mystery, Perfect Life, which is going to be out on July 7th. Their first book together, Happy Wife, was a read with Jenna Pick. Both books take place in the upper crust of Winter Park, which is actually where I live, so it was really exciting to read and know where things are. Meredith has spent more than 2 decades as a TV writer and executive producer. Kendall's career spans from a nonprofit grant writer to a communications consultant. We are super excited to have them here today and specifically to learn about how their writing partnership began and how it works. Thank you so much for being here. Go ahead and jump right into it. I'm really interested to know, how do you guys write through a partnership? Because we've never talked to people that are two authors writing together.
Okay. So the process is the same, kind of different writing a book as a duo. It's something that I think the first book that we wrote together, I came to Meredith with an idea and I was like, I have these things and I don't know what to do with them. And obviously the second one, we started the book together. And now we're working on a third one. And we found, I think that the process continues to evolve, but it really just comes down to, we love these characters and we want to see them have the right experience, or an experience that feels really true to them. And so we try to stand in that space and do what we can to craft the story.
Very cool. And how did you guys meet and become friends?
We met in the glamorous way that moms meet at back to school night. So our first grade, I was like, if it's not there, it's like a bounce house party or carpool. But
Yep.
my we joined a school, my older son's first grade year, and I'll let Kendall tell her side of the story because it's funny. But we literally met at back to school night, whatever, 4 years ago, which is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So you're talking about being chronically on time or chronically late. I don't try to be chronically late. Our kids were attending at the time is kind of on a hill in the middle of a park, where in an old building. So the parking of it all is virtually impossible. And it's, the middle of August. And so I'm like charging up the hill, having finally found a parking space, sweating. And my daughter sits down and I'm like, I've done it. She's arrived. And I look down at the piece of paper in front of her and it says, how many light switches are there in the classroom? And where is the teacher's nameplate? And all kind of activities that you would want to stand up to forage for. And she's just missed that moment of it. And thankfully, there was a little boy sitting next to her who said, "You can copy off of me." And Meredith and I looked across the table and we were like, okay. So it was her son and my daughter that introduced us.
Yes.
That is so
Aw.
Yeah, it was very
cute.
sweet. We normally don't condone cheating, but given the
Right.
circumstances, we
It was open school night. Who
back to
cares?
school
Yeah.
night.
I love that. I just actually 4 weeks ago I just had my second daughter. And so
Wow,
that
congrats. And
thank you,
you're
thank you.
vertical. Look at
Yes.
you.
Yeah. Yes. It was a C-section. So
Yes.
I up and moving and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yes,
it is
exactly.
cute.
Same. Both.
It's brutal.
Yeah. But no, so that gives me hope that there are mom friends that, I mean, could be fellow writers and create a career together. That's amazing. Um,
Absolutely.
did you go to Meredith with this idea because of her background in TV writing, or did you guys just drew together and both had a passion for writing?
Meredith was on strike, and
Oh, okay.
I was working in a job that the tech company I was working for had been acquired, and I could kind of see the tide changing, and my role being less and less useful. And so we were both at a stage in our lives where, as friends, we've been friends for about a year. As friends, we were feeling, I think you called it existential dread. And I brought to her the idea and just was like, I never finish these. I get about 20,000 words in, and then my confidence implodes and it feels really bad. And this story feels so important. And I would be devastated. I don't remember who wrote it, but there is a book somewhere that kind of plays with the idea of ideas being alive.
Mhm.
And that if you don't seize the moment, somebody else is going to capture that idea. And that felt for me very anxiety making, imagining Winter Park, this place where I grew up, becoming someone else's story. And so I felt a sense of urgency. And I knew Meredith knew how to finish the story because she's worked on a lot of great television shows. And so that felt like the solution to this urgency.
Nice. Yeah, Meredith, I saw that you were an executive producer on The Gifted, and I love anything X-Men and was like, ah, I love that show.
Amazing. Yeah, that was a number of years ago, just for a season. But it was actually one of the, I'd been to Atlanta before, but it was the first time production got into Atlanta, which was a long time ago, but it was very fun. And
Very
that show
cool.
was crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. It was wild. So I'd love to know, so you guys get together, you decide to write this book together. What did the publishing process look like for you, as far as like querying an agent as two people?
It's a good question. Our journey is a little different than I think would be the experience for another solo writer or dual writer. I've been represented at Creative Artist Agency on and off, but because anyway, and for a number of years. And my TV agent used to work. He started his career in books to film, and so during the strike, when I called him and I was like, "Hey, so I did a thing while I couldn't put the other things that I do," and I said, "With this a friend I'd met in Atlanta, and you know." Trying to figure out where to put it, and is there an agent who wants to represent it? And so he's like, "Well, can I read it?" And I said, "Well, yeah, absolutely." Um,
Yeah.
didn't know, never know how fast a read you're going to get, just because everyone's lives are incredibly busy. And it's one thing when it's a 50-page script. This is a 300 and something page, manuscript.
Yeah.
And he called us back like a week later. I feel like it was so fast.
Aw.
It was so cool. And he's like, he's like, "I love this. This is so fun. It's like such a good read." And he said, "I have this one colleague who I love and adore, and I think that she could absolutely hit this out of the park in representation land." And so he shared it with Alexandra Machinist, who's our agent, which was, so again, it's a little bit different. And we had
Yeah.
than maybe having to go through the querying process, et cetera. So
She is taking queries, though. I wouldn't want anyone to hear that and be discouraged to submit to her. She definitely is taking queries.
No,
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. And
Yeah.
and every writer everywhere should always query and always put it out there, because I think that again, we got to take a slightly earlier exit ramp than others might get to, just from my experiences.
I mean, that's been the cool thing about interviewing so many authors, is that we really discovered everybody has their own journey. And like, whereas, there are a lot of people that do traditional querying kind of stuff, there's always those stories of just you make a connection, and like, that's great. So yeah, absolutely. It's different for everybody.
Yeah.
I do want to know, so we've interviewed a couple sci-fi authors, we've interviewed a lot of romance authors, we've never interviewed mystery thrillers. So I'm really excited to get to talk to you guys about this genre. So when talking to romance writers, they talk about that there's like kind of an outline for, okay, well, you want to have the first kiss by this page, you want to have this by this page, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is there something similar when writing a mystery thriller?
There is. Yeah. There's a certain point that you want to get to where it's very clear what the mystery is, or at least with the first, I think in both books, we drop a body in that first 50 pages. You're kind of aware that there is
two bodies in this one. Yeah.
And then, every 50 pages, you're kind of looking at the game board and you're turning it a little bit. So your vantage point becomes not quite what you thought it would be. And then by that midpoint, there's this moment that kind of recharacterizes the first half of the experience, where what you thought you were chasing is not quite what you're chasing. And then, into again, every 50 pages, we're turning the board for you again and again until you get to that resolution.
Very cool.
Yeah, I think it's about the thing we learned the most, I think, going through the editorial process of Happy Wife was kind of like where our editor, Natalie Halleck, where she was changing the pacing by it wasn't that we were like wholesale getting rid of things. It was like we were just moving order, and we were kind of shifting things a bit in a way that I think it was really educational for both of us. And we were like, oh, amazing. So it's not that the piece was wrong, the piece was in the wrong place. And so I think it was really interesting, even on like one of the very first early edits with her, there was like, she started moving some bigger pieces around, and then all of a sudden you could just kind of see the pace picking up steam as opposed to, and like it was all there, but it was
Right.
that part I think it was really educational for both of us to kind of understand pacing, similar to a romance. Truly, it's the same thing. It's like you want the reader to be like arcing, turning pages to a thing.
Yeah,
Whatever
exactly.
the thing is.
Since we're talking about like pieces in different areas, can you talk about like how does the mystery work? Do you know exactly what happened and you work backwards to like put clues? Like how do you build that?
So much depends on a red wheelbarrow. I mean, I think for book one, we knew Will was going to go missing. We knew how that was going to resolve. Who is responsible for the crime at hand changed as we were drafting.
Really?
Yeah.
It's really
Oh,
interesting.
wow.
Yeah. I don't want to give it away for those
Yeah,
that
of
haven't
course.
read it. I think with book two, I don't think we knew anything. I think it changed so many times.
Yeah.
I think if anybody's writing their sophomore
Very
novel, we would just
interesting.
like to tell you that it's every book is different, and book two was really hard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's okay for it to be hard because it got to a really good place. But
Well,
Yeah.
just as far as book two goes, I love, there's a lot of things that I'm really loving about it. The back and forth between Winter Park and California is so interesting, and like just keeping that kind of pacing. It almost feels like a frame story kind of falling back into it. Like I know it's not technically, but it kind of feels like that, which is really nice. But also there are so many characters. And at first I was kind of like, okay, now which one's Nora, which one's Gemma, which one's Autumn, which one's, kind of thing. And now, getting through it, I'm like, okay, so who did it? Like, and there are so many characters to choose from, and like so many different motivations going on, that like it kind of spun me in a circle. And so it's almost like a comfort to know that you guys were also kind of pointing the finger, being like, okay, no, who did it exactly?
Totally.
Because that's what it feels like reading it.
And the hard part about mystery always is how do you have your reader in on it, but at the same time hide the ball from them, but not
Yeah,
hide
yeah.
the ball from them in a mean way, but in a like, we hope you experience this book, and then at the end you're surprised, right? We hope you don't. And so the art of like not tipping your hand, but at the same time, Kendall and I both tend to err in the direction. It won't necessarily always be that. I should say we have to this moment. In the direction of like not having like Deus Ex new character in the third part of the, in the of the book, because we like it to be more that you're looking around the room being like, who's the killer at the table, or who's the killer at the party? And just because some styles of writing allow for that, and it's okay. But I think we wanted to be really specific about at least letting the reader feel like they were in on it, trying to solve it with us at the same time. So
we really bonded over a love of 90 noir mystery movies. And I feel like you can kind of see that you meet the players pretty early on, and then the story of what happens changes. And I think book two was extra complicated because we chose to stay in the world, and so retain some of those characters and some of those artifacts, and then build on them, which was a real challenge for us in a positive, like challenge yourself to grow good way, but definitely difficult.
And we learned too, I think, interestingly enough, in that book, that we had kind of figured out partway through writing, and we were already even in editorial at a certain point where like we knew who we wanted book two's book to be. But at that point, we'd already planted flags. And that's the other thing when you're writing inside a serialized universe, it's like all of a sudden we're finding even in book three that we're like, well, we said this already, so we're going to have to write into that and figure out like how those pieces fit together. And there's always an answer. Like the good news is you find it. Sometimes we're like, oh man, I wish we could go back and change that from like 4 months to 2 months. Timeline problem. But we're figuring it out. But I think that when you write serialized world, you have to almost be you don't want to be thinking ahead so that you box yourself out of the story you're trying to tell now. But at the same time, you do have to kind of think a little bit ahead and around the bend, just to know.
Yeah. Well, and when I started Perfect Life, I didn't know that it was a sequel or serialized in that same world. And so, it definitely felt like I was jumping into the deep end a little bit, but you guys do such a great job of giving context to everything. It doesn't feel it doesn't feel like over-explanatory, but it also doesn't feel alienating at all. Like it's very much like you are coming into an established group of friends or an established group of people. And it was a very lived-in
Mhm.
world. And then you guys start talking about the mystery, and I was like, oh, that's what the first book is about. So now, of course, I want to go back and read the first book.
Nice.
Yeah. So like it was very kind of cool to feel like this is a very lived-in world and these characters have history together. But it's, I would tell anybody like you don't have to read it in order, but you should read it in order.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we endorse
totally.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
we try to be thoughtful about like breadcrumbs and treats for rereaders, but at the same
Yeah.
time trying to make sure that the book is standalone,
Yeah.
which is also
Yeah.
hard when you're in a serialized universe, right? So it's
Mhm.
Yeah.
but I think we hope that with Perfect Life there are people who have read, there are going to be little moments that they're going to be like, oh, cool, that's what that is. Oh, they're back, or oh,
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
tapping to it. Yeah.
No, I'm really excited to
That's
go
really
back
fun.
and read the first one because I like these characters so much that I'm like, I want to know what happened before this. When I have beta readers for my novels, one of my favorite things to do is ask them, if this were to be turned into a film or a TV show or whatever else, like who would you cast as this character? Just because I feel like I'm not great at describing my characters, so it helps give me something. So I'm especially interested with, your history in the TV universe. One, uh, would you want this to be made into a movie or a limited series or a TV show if, you got the green light for that? And then two, are there any actors that you would want cast? Because in my mind, Bo is Glenn Powell. Like that's just who I'm picturing.
Nice. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think it was funny. With a 28-year-old lead in the first book,
Mhm.
Yeah.
with Nora, it's an interesting thing of like, and then speaking a little insider baseball, the business of like who's somebody that is interesting across all streamers and all like who's a star at Apple and who's a star, etc.
Right.
It's interesting. And where
Yeah.
we landed, there were so many people to like. There were so many people that we threw back and forth to each other. And where we really landed ultimately was that we needed a time machine because we wanted to go back in time and cast a young Katie Holmes as Nora.
That'd be
Yes.
great. That would be so good.
She has both the incredible, sweet surface, but like also has a lot of depth as an actor. And so I think she could have pulled off the arc that Nora goes through in that book. So that's
Mhm.
where we landed ultimately. We were just like, she kind of became our true
Yeah.
Nora.
Nice. Who would be your
Um,
SD?
I don't remember where we finally landed on SD.
Steve's kind of, I feel like ethereal in all of the good ways. Like I think Riley Keough could do it. I think Brenda
Mhm.
Song could do it. Like I
Yeah.
feel like there is
Yes.
something to her grit that you
Yeah.
actually, as long as you find a cool girl,
Mhm.
like SD
Yeah.
is a cool girl to her core.
Yes.
But I
She's
think
so
that look,
glamorous.
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes. Which, yeah, I think there are a lot of women that embody that across like the
Yeah.
spectrum of actresses that are out there right now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very
So,
cool. I always think it's interesting with characters just because, again, reading all of these, I'm like trying to picture people, but Bo so far is the only one that's like really stuck in there. And
I love
I don't
that.
know why. I just feel like Glenn Powell really.
Yeah,
He gives Glenergy. He gives
Yeah,
off
right.
Glenergy.
Yeah,
Yes,
Energy.
exactly.
Florida surfer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I love
he
that.
does. He totally does.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah. And then if you guys could, would you want to do you think this would ever translate into like, because to me I'm picturing like a limited series like Big Little Lies or something like that, because I feel like each book just feels so, I don't know, like the way that's broken up, I can see the episodes. Really, it's a very very visual storytelling style.
Yeah. I think,
Yeah.
we would be open. I think we'd be open to the idea of that at some point if it became that. But I think the most important thing for us when we started out was that the most important thing is that it was a book
Yeah.
and that we
Cool.
wanted it to be a book.
Yeah.
I think partly because that had been Kendall's like lifelong goal dream, like wanted, and then for
Aw.
me, it was the piece of like, I'd always wanted to write a book and just had, gratefully, thankfully hadn't had time with migrant. And so I think for us, it was just so important to me that it was like for both of us, but
Mhm.
especially me too, like it had to be a book. Like it had
Yeah.
to be a
Yeah.
thing that it wanted to be. I talk a lot about writing that like a book is not a TV show and a TV show is not a book. And so even when you're, I'm adapting a couple novels right now, and it's the work you have to do to like pull it apart to put it back together as a TV thing is really different. So I think for me, just having like the first tangible thing that like, I have a lot of dead pilots on shelves in Hollywood, and I have
No.
like a
Yeah.
physical thing I can hand to like my parents and be like, it's the whole thing. And if
Yeah.
that's all it ever is, that's incredible. Like what a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But everyone likes to see we've turned entertainment into such an interesting thing of everybody wants to read the thing and then see the thing, which
Yes.
is
Yeah.
and I understand why IP is the driver of content right now, and it's really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So Kendall, you're the one who grew up in Winter Park, yes?
Yes.
So how did you find it to get all those little details in there? Because like there's so many little pieces of Winter Park that, like I said, it's very visual. Like just reading about this, I don't know if Lemon and Fig is or was a restaurant or whatever, but I keep picturing. I don't know if you know Garp and Fuss on Park Ave. It's a restaurant. It's really great, but like that's what I kept picturing in my a specific place
Sure,
on
yeah.
Park Ave. So how did you get all those little details into this story?
I think I had a really fortunate 18-year study assignment
Okay.
where I was able to my grandmother worked in real estate in Winter Park, and
Oh,
so I
okay.
would spend some weekend my mom I'm one of 4 children, and so you
Mhm.
can imagine that I was fortunate enough to live with both my grandparents, 1 mile in this direction and 1 mile in that direction. And so there was a lot of times that I spent with my grandparents as my mom is acclimating to my younger siblings coming into the house. And so I had the privilege of hearing specifically my grandmother, who came to Winter Park in the 70s when my grandfather was working in some of the construction for Disney World. She just knew like the bones of the place, and she could tell you what this house used to be and who was there before them. And that kind of mode of storytelling became really ingrained in my experience as a kid. And so I can remember a lot of the landmarks as they were, and it's almost jarring for me to go back.
Mhm.
I think I interviewed with the Orlando Sentinel last year, and he asked if it was nostalgic. Like, is this sort of a nostalgic version of Winter Park? And I obviously live in Atlanta now, so there are pieces of it that I'm sure some people would identify as being more nostalgic than like baked into the atmosphere right now, because it is the work of fiction. We have to
Of course.
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
go
Of
ahead and
course.
apply that disclaimer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it came from a lot of experiences there.
Yeah. So you didn't like come back and, rewalk it, like make sure that everything.
No,
Yeah. Okay. Because
no.
that's, yeah,
We
no, go
did,
ahead.
after we sold it, we did come down because Meredith hadn't seen it. And so
Oh,
we were
wow.
fortunate enough to get Captain Tom, who does the Winter Park Scenic Boat Tours, offered us an
Yep.
after hours experience.
Oh, that's
And
fun.
so we did, yeah, some friends took us around, and Meredith got to see, the town for what it is.
Mhm.
Um I come back every year for like to see family and things like
Yeah.
that. So
Mhm.
there are touchstone moments that I'm having
Mhm.
with Winter Park, but as far as the full business, I feel like we really got that last year when we were in town promoting Happy Wife.
Very cool. Yeah. I love that you talk about the boat tours because I love doing that at Christmas time and looking at all the ridiculous mansions covered in Christmas
Decked
lights.
out for the
They,
holidays. That's awesome.
yeah. Yeah. Like literally, Maddie, they decorate the back of their houses. So as you're going through the canals, all the Christmas lights are back there too. Like
Oh,
it's
that's cool.
insane. It really
so
is.
cool.
It's wild.
Love that.
Did you grow up kind of in this upper crust group of Winter Parkians, or was it always kind of like on the outside? Like we talked about, my mom went to Winter Park High, back
Uh-huh.
in the 80s. And so she was always kind of on the outside. So she's like, I went to parties at those houses, but that was
Yeah.
not my life. Or were you
Yeah.
kind of more into it?
My childhood dots the spectrum. So I went to
Cool.
private school in Winter Park, at a school called Park Maitland. I was very fortunate to go there. And then by the time that I was in middle school, I attended Trinity Prep on a scholarship. So like
Okay.
my parents had their financial ebbs and
Yeah.
flows led to my experience being like I said, a little bit all over the spectrum. So I have a lot of friends still to this day that enjoy very privileged lives in Winter Park, and also
The country club.
I can appreciate the outsider's perspective, or feeling like feeling like you're there and you're pressing your nose up against the glass of the thing, but you're not inside the thing.
Yeah, yeah. Because Nora and Esty, they both just have that genuine kind of awe for the whole thing. So that's why I was wondering, because I feel like that outsider insider vibe comes through really clearly.
Yeah.
One thing I love about the two of them in the first book is that they're both like the different kind of outsider, right? Where Nora's a true outsider.
Yeah.
And then Esty is an outsider in that she didn't grow up here. She's not from here. She has no connection to here, but she has the financial means to like live the way other people live. And I think it's such an interesting kind of like two sides of the fish out of water coin, which I think is also, I think, why they love each other and why they're friends. But it's just, that part was fun to kind of explore, of Essie being able to have the kind of don't have to care about anything vibe, and Nora just trying to find her place.
Yes.
But,
yeah. Well, and especially Nora trying to clear her name and you know. No, absolutely. No, I love these characters so much. They feel really lived in and genuine. And it's killing me not to like ask spoilery questions for the second book, because we need content to post, but there's so much that like I want to talk about. So I do want to ask, so what does, like, okay, so we talked about your guys' writing process together, but specifically when it comes to like the physical act of writing, is it you guys sit in a room together and like one dictates and one types? Do you guys like write one chapter? Like, how does the actual act of writing go?
Yeah, we rely a lot on Google Docs. So we'll kind of carve up the outline, and you take that and I take that. And I think it speaks to my experience working in a corporate environment and Meredith's experience working in television. There's a lot of that happens organically, where it's like no one really owns the thing, everyone owns a piece of the thing, and then we all bring it together to make it the best version of itself.
Okay. Yeah. And then as far as the editing process goes, like, do you guys, I guess if you're writing in Google Docs, you're kind of rereading each other's work all the time, and you just kind of edit as you go? Okay.
Yeah. Lots of notes and comments and highlights, and just kind of like truly like a living, breathing document. That goes back and forth.
We both are big fans of we have Kindle scribes, and so like there'll be a certain point where we put it in a PDF and then read it on the scribe, because you can make notes on the document. And that's really helpful.
I literally have mine right here.
Yeah. I was like, me too. Mine's right here.
Mine's right here.
It's never very
downstairs.
It's never very far.
That's so funny, because so Maddy and I, so we met in grad school, and then eventually got together and did this podcast. But we like to go to the AWP conference every year, the Authors, Writers, Poets. And so the first time that we went together, she had a Kindle. Like, what is this magic tool? Because I'm sitting here with a notebook and pen taking like.
I made a lot of friends that time.
She literally became like the unofficial spokesperson for Kindle Scribe, and we joke all the time that like they're a sponsor of this show.
I wish.
So
I wish.
Oh, yeah, that would be nice. Yeah, we had a similar experience. I showed up to coffee one morning and I had Meredith was like, "What is that? What are you doing? What is that?"
Because I was using an iPad with an Apple Pen, which is totally fine, but I like the writing surface better.
Me too.
Yeah, just to have the touch of it, but I end up using a little bit of both, because screenplays are easier to read on an iPad for a million reasons. But anyway, but yes, my scribe it goes everywhere. And now that we also are like, what a gift that we carry like libraries in that, like,
Oh, I know.
Any book you want is never that far away. So
yeah.
That's pretty magical.
I've always been somebody that had to, as far as like when I'm writing, I have to print it out and physically write on it. And I hated all the trees I was killing because when you're writing a novel, that's a lot of pages you're printing out. And if you're constantly rewriting anyway, so the Kindle's been really great for that because you still have that experience of being able to write directly on it. I don't know why my editor brain doesn't work as well on the screen.
It's a different kind of I find I do that with all of my work where I'll edit on screen, and then like what Kendall said, at a certain point it has to be a different interaction with the material. And so I find whatever that is. So for me, it's that. The other thing, Kendall and I sometimes use like audio playback so we can listen to it. Like we'll literally let it get read back to us just so that, because you catch like, it's so interesting, even though it's like, you know, an AI voice doing it, but you get like, you catch words that are like the wrong word, even though it's not like a narrator narrating, and there's just all of a sudden you'll hear it, you'll be like, oh, that's not the right word. I equate it to like the table reads in TV where you do a table read and hear an actor say something, you're like, whoa, I'm gonna rewrite that line. It's not their fault, it's just the wrong line.
Right.
And you're like, this is an actor who can deliver the line, but we gave the actor the wrong line, so we're gonna fix it.
Right.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I tell my students all the time to read everything they do out loud before turning it in because it's just the best way to edit.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you hear it. And as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh, yeah, no, not that. Or you're like, oh, that's funny. Okay, that line works.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. No, absolutely.
Exactly.
So how many drafts do you guys generally do per book? Because like I feel like
300.
well, that's what I was gonna wonder. Like if you guys are editing as you're going, what does an actual draft look like for you?
We do a lot. There are lots of I didn't look, we have the benefit when it passes through two people, it's like nobody ever really reads a first draft of ours.
Right.
In a weird way. It's like I think it's the advantage of having a partner is that you end up with something slightly more polished just because it's filtering through to
Right. Yeah.
We tend to, when we're making bigger shifts, we tend to archive the draft and leave it as a historical document of what it was at one point in time, and just and then move to the next.
Yeah.
But there are lots, again, because there are two of us, we're passing it back and forth.
Yeah, I think because we have this like work in progress versus archive thing, the number is like in the 50s or 60s, because it's like, especially with mystery and learning what we have about pacing and cadence, you get to a certain point where you know what you know and you're trying to pace out what you know for the reader. And then you're like, you know what, if I withheld this piece but move that piece over there, and then that's a huge lift and shift. But that could happen in the first half, could happen in the first chapter. I mean, I feel like the first chapter gets rewritten 30 times, 40 times.
Yeah. Did this book always open as explosively as it does now with a body in the pool?
Yes.
Okay.
That was always our prologue.
Opens. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
The first chapter, the first draft was there's a bit that Essie has TP'd Carol Parker's house. And the first chapter used to be them actually TPing the house, and you seeing her relationship to Polly and the town as they're streaking their way back. And what we found, I think what's great about Natalie, our editor, is that she never kills the thing, she just kind of folds it in. And so Emma Brody, who wrote Into the Blue, we share an editor, and she did an interview recently where she said that the like final draft of Into the Blue was like 180,000 words or something like that. And so they call what was published the remix edition, and it's so Natalie. And she's like, if we were going to share any lost scenes, they wouldn't be lost, they would just be longer. And I feel like in the editing process where we got to was this can live in a brief moment in her, recall versus seeing the whole scene.
Yeah, absolutely. I love her relationship with Polly too. Like it reveals so much about Esty as a person that I just love it. It's great. So as you guys have continued writing this series, do you feel like you get a better grasp on the pacing each time? Like, do you guys wait for Natalie to be like, no, this is great? Or are you always kind of like, no, let's move this puzzle here and move this puzzle here and, kind of thing?
I think we're always challenging ourselves to make it different. And I think that means we don't get to hold the template too close. Cool. So in the case of the third book, it's a cold case. And yes. So Party Planner Autumn has been in Winter Park for a long time on a very specific mission. and the act of pacing that out, where Nora and Esty are more reactive characters, like they think they have it figured out, and then plot comes along and like, no, you don't. And I think in the case of Autumn, she is running a different game, and so like it's we're learning all over again, which is fun and also has its own existential dread.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
it paces differently. If you're still trying to hit those like benchmark card turn spots in the book, they just pace really differently than Will missing or a body
Right.
dropping, or it hits different. So it's trying to figure out yeah, exactly what those turns are when you're dealing with something that
Mhm.
passed.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm also really excited to hear the third book is about Autumn,
Yeah, I know.
because she's been a fun character that's been like off to the side, and I'm excited to have more about from her because that's really cool. How do you guys?
We like to say about her, the beauty of Autumn is that she's everywhere and nowhere at the same time. That's
She
the beauty of her
just
character.
she feels like she has her fingers in kind of everything a
Mhm.
little bit, which
But
is
she's also
nice.
nowhere, and she also just like disappears and makes that thing that broke be fixed, and then so it's like her little
Yeah,
magic,
yeah.
her party planner magic.
I was gonna say I have a friend who used to be a wedding planner in the Winter Park area, like planning, the Four Seasons out at Disney World
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So like in that tier,
Yeah.
and I was picturing her the whole time of like, I know all the gossip, but I'm not in the gossip.
Yep.
So
Mhm.
yeah, cool.
Mhm.
Mhm.
How do you guys decide who the next book is going to be about?
This one, I think, interestingly enough, no, the reason these three came, like Nora's was Nora. We knew we loved Esty, and so we wanted her to have the second book. Also, because there were some things that we set up in the first book about her, and clearly their exit from California is weird and all that. I think we turned to Autumn because she's another, like, she's fish out of water, right? So she's our third kind of in this batch, like our third character who you hopefully enjoy elements about her, but she also is somebody who's not of the world, but now she's deeply in the world. And so I
Mhm.
think for us that it made a lot of sense for it to be hers
Mhm.
next.
Mhm.
We
Um,
pitched Autumn when we pitched we signed a 2-book deal, but we pitched Autumn as part of that conversation. We were like, this would be how we foresee it continuing. So I think Esty and Nora, in an interesting way, are like two sides of the same coin. Like they both have the dream life, but what that looks like and what that's built on is different. And then Autumn is, like Meredith was saying, a continuation of this sort of fish out of water experience. So I think if folks love it and we were privileged enough to be asked to do another one, it would have to be probably a reboot of the world, because it's become a little bit complicated to stack so much
Mhm.
mystery on top of mystery.
the third book has been fun too, though, because as the more you write in a serial world, the more you get to like also like introduce new people and
Mhm.
like utilize your cornerstone characters a little bit differently, and then
Mhm.
you can broaden the world a little bit. So I think that's been fun for this book as well, is kind of opening up the butterfly map one more page
Yeah.
on arc.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and especially like you guys said, Autumn's not quite in that inner circle, whereas I feel like Esty's kind of right in the middle of
Yeah,
the
in the thick of it.
circle. Yeah, exactly. Every time she talks about Tippy, I'm like, oh God, we all know a Tippy.
I do love a Tippy, man. She's delightful because we all know one. You're
Just has
absolutely right.
nothing to lose.
Nothing. Just doesn't care.
So I would love to know, what does your writing community look like? Do you guys have other writers kind of in your life in the same stages of publishing books and stuff?
We have a mix. So we have a actually it's fun. We have a group that we have coffee like once a month, and the other three writers are non-published writers as of right now, but like all kind of at the have put pen to paper a million times over and are talented and
Yeah.
kind of finding their way. But we do that, and then we also have published author friends as well.
Mhm.
Some here in Atlanta, and then some kind of around the country.
Mhm.
So we kind of have a mix, which is
Nice.
nice.
Do you
But
guys
I always say
ever?
that it's great to have writers to, I don't know, and like, look, I've been doing this a long time, but there's always something to learn. And there's always
Yeah.
something to learn about process, and listening to other writers' processes that you're like, oh, you're like, interesting. Like, I have never thought of that. I should try that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, that's one of the many reasons why we love doing this podcast, is just the opportunity to talk to other writers. It's the thing that Maddie and I miss most about grad school.
Yeah.
Always getting to talk about the process.
Yeah.
Do you guys share like drafts or beta read each other's works at all, or is it just kind of like you guys and your editor?
The first book we definitely did. Like the first
Okay.
book, I know, like Meg, a bunch of them read. Meg
I
definitely
don't
did.
think
Some other people.
so.
Yeah.
No, she didn't.
She didn't?
No, she read Esty.
Oh, there we
She
go. I'm like, I knew she read somebody.
yeah.
We had beta readers, like my at the time assistant, who's now a writer in and of her own right, which is amazing. She was really, really lockstep with us on the first book, and she's a phenomenally talented writer and reader and editor. And so she read every single draft, literally every draft,
Oh, wow.
which
That's
was such a
awesome.
gift. Yeah, and it was amazing. And then we both had a couple of like our closest inner circle friends that we asked to read as not as writers though. We asked them to read as readers, you know, and just because I think for us it was, does it sound like one person writing the book? Does it sound like one voice? Does it sound like, do you like these people? Is it funny? Do you enjoy it?
Yeah,
Are you
right, of course.
surprised?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's always a struggle with beta readers is
Yeah.
I mean, I can't speak for Maddie, but I'm pretty sure both of us, like we have some writer friends who can beta read, but a lot of it is just friends who are reading as
Right,
readers.
Yeah.
And I love the writer feedback, but I feel like the reader feedback is sometimes a little more valuable because the
Yeah.
writers can, get a little prescription-y at times.
Yeah.
No, totally.
Yeah.
Every writer's an editor.
Mhm.
Also,
We
yeah,
can't help ourselves. We can't help ourselves.
we
We
have
would
to
be.
be.
I would. Yeah.
No,
Exactly.
totally.
Exactly. Nice. I love that. Um, Maddie, you want to ask the last one?
Yes. Our last question is always, if a writer would take one piece of advice from this podcast, what would you want it to be?
I think it's, for me, as somebody who like has been writing for a really long time, it was like trying the new medium, doing the new thing, pushing like outside the boundaries of 52 pages of a script, and like taking the plunge and trying something. One thing I'm working on right now, I'm pushing myself to write a short story. It's daunting because short stories are so hard.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
They're so hard. But I'm just pushing myself because I know how to write a script. I now know how to write books, right? Like, and again, I'm still new at it, but like
Of
I
course.
understand the process. And so I think taking away, like pushing yourself to do something that you maybe makes you uncomfortable or whatever, but what you learn from that, and even if what you write you hate, it's like I always tell writers, put it in a drawer, because inevitably, like, there's going to be a day you're doing something else, and whether you bring it back out because you have the answer, or you bring it back out because you're like, I'm going to steal that character because that character belongs in this
Yeah.
new story that I'm working on.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think you ever write anything not worth holding on to. So
Yes.
I would say, but yeah, trying new mediums I think is important.
Love that.
Love that.
Kendall,
I think
give an
I would,
advice.
I know that you all, I've listened to some of the episodes. I know that you all have been challenging yourselves to query and to put yourselves out there. And I think that's the real magic of writing. And I would say just keep going. Like my advice would be, the time is going to pass either way. And so these moments where you feel like, oh, it's not time, or I don't know, or I haven't decided. For me, the real push and urgency came from turning 40 and realizing that the time passes either way. And so to just get started and keep going, and don't let the bastards get you down.
Yes.
I love that. I love
Exactly.
that. But also I now want to put up the time passes either way on my like vision board. So like that's such a great quote.
It really is.
Yeah, it really does. Well, thank you both so much for being here and talking to us. This has been really, really awesome, and I can't wait for Perfect Life to come out soon, and then the third book after that. That'll be great.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I'm Abigail.
And I'm Maddie, and this has been
Two writers.
Many Wrongs.